right, thank you, Justin. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. I know after I grow up, I really want Ben's job. That was totally fascinating. That was awesome. All right. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be with you for the fourth year in a row. Fourth Socrata Connect, which I pinch myself every time. All right. So today, I would like to talk with you about a fundamental transformation in how knowledge work gets done in government. That's the topic today. Surprisingly, this has everything to do with data. Data in the hands of empowered employees and how that data can help us transform and improve outcomes. The shining bright light in this is that data is the one resource you have in abundance. Budgets aren't growing, time isn't growing, the ranks of government employees are definitely not growing, but what is growing fast is data. Decades of digitizing everything you rely on have given us more data than we know what to do with. More than that, everything that you use on a daily basis, everything you regulate, from train cars to parking meters to medical devices to buildings, are now device data at a bristling pace. What's also growing is our own expectations. Your own expectations, your stakeholder expectations, the expectations of your constituents, because, and this is the reason we're all here, we all want to lead with data. We all want to do more with data and be done. But between expectations and the day-to-day reality is a very big gap. And at the center of that gap, ironically, are those who are most able to affect outcomes. Your colleagues at work, the government knowledge workers, the analysts, program managers, the project managers, the inspectors, the caseworkers, the executive team in charge of a program. And that expectation gap plays out every day in virtually every program, every department across government. 9 a.m. on Monday, say you're the director of operations at a city DOT. You show up to work, you open your inbox, a bunch of emails from the mayor's office, from your director, from other stakeholders, because it's been a busy weekend on the road. There's been a surge in accidents, some pedestrian injuries, some cyclists. People are asking questions. What happened? Was it the weather? Is it events we didn't know were happening? Is it the new cycling paths that opened up? What exactly happened? So you go searching for answers. And the first place you start is, well, where's the data that gives us some of these answers? In fact, 37% of knowledge work is spent looking for data, just looking for it. Where is this data? And when you ask that question, you almost inevitably go to the people you have always relied on for those answers. The technical folks who are maintaining and in these systems where we know the data lives, these systems that you now need access to. And you ask them, hey, can I have roadwork data? Can I have, because the 911 report wasn't updated when you showed up to work. The PDF of telling you much. Somebody's still merging crash data from the city police department with the state troopers. And you can see the biking lanes in your GIS system, but you have no idea if they're operational or not. So you go to the people you've always relied on and you ask for data. And they do their view this data, because you're not the only one asking. Your peers are asking for other types of data, right? So they get you this data. And despite tens of millions of investment in business intelligence and data warehouses and all this stuff, what is the de facto way that data gets shared in government? A spreadsheet sent by email, right? In fact, and your resources, your precious technical resources who are completely overstretched, are spending yet more time. 36% of their time is spent wrangling and preparing data for you and your peers and their business customers on a constant treadmill. And what you get out of this process is the digital equivalent of this. Hundreds of spreadsheets that are supposed to tell us the answer, but in which spreadsheet exactly are we supposed to find the answer, right? Lots of reports, lots of dashboards, or something that you need right at that time to something that you can get an answer to. Well, it would take 2 weeks to change that dashboard. In fact, we end up creating information assets over information assets. 10 hours a week are spent recreating that which, why? Because we can't find that already exists. So we create some more, right? And we end up with this version. And you know this well, and it has a maybe not so hidden cost. In a recent article in Information Management, it says this costs organizations $1.7 million in lost productivity for every 100 knowledge workers. Do the math, right? It is a staggering amount of just lost time, lost effort, and lost resources we actually much of. So when we step back and we say, okay, cool, we know this world well, but like, why is it? Why is it that this is the status quo? Yes, there are exceptions, but in general, this is the world. Why is that? It has to do, the first thing is, the data infrastructure that underpins this knowledge work was built for a world that no longer exists. It was built on the assumption that data was small, that data was scarce, and that data was static. None of those are true. Data is not small, it's not static, and it's definitely not scarce. In fact, we do a world where data is pervasive. The second thing that has changed has to do with organizational structure, right? So think about it. In the 90s, I started working in the 90s, so I know this well. In the 90s, data is like exclusively the domain of technical experts. If I'm going to my IT department, because I just heard something I don't understand, right? So we've grown up in organizations where data is still the technical domain, the exclusive domain of technical experts. But that's not how we work. Certainly the new generations joining the ranks of government have a entirely different set of expectations. Why? Because their expectations are shaped by their digital lives as consumers. They get to work with data every day. They don't think of it as something hard. They don't think of it as something bewildering. They don't think of it as something you need to ask somebody for. It's just something that you do. So our expectations are changing. The third thing that has changed, and dramatically and in a very, very good way, this is really exciting, is that our aspirations for what to do with the data have dramatically changed. We now aspire to just getting a report or a visualization. We now want to change things, right? We want to detect lead poisoning before it happens, or water that could poison an entire town. We want to prioritize restaurants that have a poor health record, who are prone to getting, so we can prevent foodborne disease. That's what we now aspire to. And all of these problems are complex problems that require multiple data sources, that require collaboration across departments, that require sometimes advanced analytics, the predictive kind sometimes, that require an iterative mental approach, right? That's how these problems get solved. So let's walk for maybe 1 minute in the shoes of a DOT director, right? We have Shane Marshall from Utah DOT with us. And a lot of time kind of trying to understand what's going on in transportation. It is absolutely exciting. But if you manage a mobility program, right, your life wasn't boring before. You had roads and transit and all kinds of stuff. But think about your life now. Think about what it means to optimize mobility in a world where 2 car hailing services in your city, right? 3 bike sharing services, autonomous vehicles driving around, and more so, drones delivering packages, Elon Musk is digging a tunnel, not so boring Diddy, and putting a hyperloop, all while your residents or your citizens are moving from point A to point B using third-party apps you have zero control over. That's your world. So optimize that. That is very exciting, but it's also very daunting of mobility today. But the underlying problem is that the world that you have, that you know, was built, was optimized for certainty and durability, and now you're being asked to operate in a world that requires flexibility and change. But in what we've been doing for the last 10 years, the world of open data, we've seen the successes that happen in open data, and they all boil down to the simple fact. When you take data, put it in people's hands, empower them to use it, and do that in an open field, innovation soon follows. We've lived it, we have many great examples. And when you break it down, why did that, when that works and it works beautifully well, why does it work? What are the elements of this blueprint? Because if we learn from that, maybe we can bring that to the world of enterprise data, to the world of the knowledge worker. Elements of success. They're really simple. And they are well known by us because we've been doing this for close to 10 years as a community. The first thing is make the data discoverable, right? Allow people, enable people to find what they need, when they want to, where they want to. Give them simple tools. Everybody is like Ben, right? Give us simple tools, because data is intimidating, so give us tools to contextualize it so that we can relate to it in a meaningful way, right? Simple visualizations, maps, charts. Make the data portable. An incredibly important, so don't put the data in a walled garden, make it portable. APIs, open standards, embeddability of everything. That's what creates innovation. And last but not least, build a community, a diverse community around this data. Because insights come when a community that in New York included also 3,000 other developers and multiple organizations, in addition to the city employees, a community around data that cares about the answers, that iterates on those answers, is what allows insights to happen. They don't happen by accident. So when you look at our successes in the world of open data, like predictive model that took data and created a way to optimize a really, really hard problem. They have 35 inspectors and 16,000 restaurants. John, I hope I got that right. Yeah, right? So they can't possibly inspect, half the restaurants are considered high risk. How could you have 8,000 restaurants with 35 inspectors? You can't. So let's put data to work and let's come up with a way that helps us prioritize those restaurants that are more likely to have issues based on data and analysis and a community that works to get those answers. In New Orleans, 8,000 smoke alarms in homes that didn't have them, saving lives. It didn't cost money. They used data, right? That's the kind of innovation that we've seen happen in the open data world. In Massachusetts, a $60 billion budget is now in the community's hands, and the comptroller's office and his team, they're working on making sure that every dollar of those $60 billion are spent in the best way possible for taxpayers. So when we set out to solve this world of the knowledge worker inside government, we had the blueprint of basic things that we need to make available to those who are most able to affect outcomes and bring forward these things that we've learned in open data. But we also knew that we had to do much more than that. We had to systematically go after the big internal data sharing, internal sharing of analytics, people collaborating within departments, across departments. So we envisioned a world that started with, where should this data live? The cloud. It's the only place it can live. There isn't a physical data that can handle the scale of the data we have now, certainly not the scale of data and compute we're going to have in a few years. And look at the numbers. Last year alone, AWS, Microsoft, Google spent $20 billion building public cloud infrastructure. Can't compete. We did 2 years ago. We moved all our infrastructure from our 2 self-hosted data centers onto AWS Publica. One of the best decisions we've ever made. We knew that this cloud had to be secure because now in an internal world, we're going to share some pretty sensitive data, like open easy data to share. No, some of this data is going to have like case data and personally identifiable information and things we really want to guard because obvious reasons, because we have to. So this cloud had to be a secure cloud, which is why last year got accreditation as a FedRAMP moderate environment, working with our customer, the FCC. It's been hard, but it had to be done. So we did that in preparation for this. So when Kevin this morning said this is 3 years in the making, we started laying the foundation for this about 3 years ago with the move to AWS accreditation. But we also envisioned a world for that government knowledge worker where they enjoy the most fundamental enabler of all, which is access to authoritative and up-to-date data. 80 spreadsheets about collisions or accidents is not going to help. There's only one source of truth. We know where it is. Let's get it out there. Let's make sure that it's always up to date, it's always authoritative, and let's point everybody and everything we do to that one source of data. It can be done. It has been done. We need to scale it. That we needed to do is strike a really, really tricky balance. And it has little to do with technology and everything to do with psychology. Departments, people are reluctant to share data if they lose control over their data. I don't know how people are going to interpret my data. I don't know how they're going to use it. I don't know how they're going to, share it over and over again. If I lose control, I'm going to have a hard time letting go of the data for many reasons. And I'm not being selfish. It's like this data is important. So in order to solve this problem, we needed to address a very basic need to provide the data owner with control, confidence that they can determine at any given time how their data is being shared. And they need to see that in the system so they get that confidence. Professionals call this data governance. We simply call it peace of mind. Once we were free to pursue the other goal that needs to become the norm, which is self-service. If the data and the owners of that data are in control over how it's being shared, great. Now we can open up self-service access to data. Because I don't need that data 2 weeks from now. I need it now. And the convenience of now. Why should we wait for things that we know are there? Let's get it now. Let's get it when I need it, because don't have a lot of time. So this idea of self-service in an internal, secure, authenticated, managed environment is this peace of mind. But since we were little kids, we always wanted to do more. We always wanted to do things for ourselves, right? We want to create insights. We want to answer our own questions. And we envisioned this world where did not have to be a Ben, did not have to be a data scientist, did not even have to be technical in order to interact with the data in a way that's insightful to them, right? Not a rigid report, something that they can interact with, that they can ask questions of and get answers and ask deep people into that iterative process that actually generates innovation. We tend to think that, oh, you're going to get a data scientist and we're going to get all the insights we need. That's just not how it happens. It happens by enabling people and creating an environment where people can just collaborate using their tools of choice, right? Everybody's comfortable with a certain set of tools, for example, in the world of BI. So help them use that which makes them productive and help people collaborate while still having that freedom and autonomy to use the tools that they want. That's the world. We also thought about the last 10 years of our experience in open data. Wow, it's been quite the journey. How can we make it better? How can we scale it? We know that when you put resources and time and effort and love in your open data programs that great things happen. Resources, time, effort, and love. They are in short supply, right? So how could we turn this world where we're empowering a knowledge worker in government to manage their program? How can we leverage that world? How can we take advantage of that and turn the data to optimize the operations, the performance, the financial sustainability of their program? How can we turn that into open data at little or no cost? How can we drive the marginal cost of open data down to zero? And while doing that, can we increase the flow and quality of open data with data that people are already using to manage their programs? That was the final piece that we needed to get right when we envisioned this entire world of the Socrata Connected Government Cloud. All right, so we did more than envision. We actually built it. So today, we're excited to introduce to you, to share with you what we call the Socrata Connected Government Cloud. We've talked about it. Who wants to see it? Yes? All right. Excellent. Okay, so help me welcome on stage our VP of Product Development and Mike Williams. Hello, Franklin.
Hello, Saf, and good afternoon, Socrata Connect. I am beyond thrilled to be here today. We've been on this journey for a while, and I've been looking forward to this day for a very long time as well. But today's a very important day. Today's a day where we're launching the Socrata Connected Government Cloud. And with today's launch, we're finally going to be in a position to break down those barriers that are getting in the way of you using your data more strategically. We're finally going to be able to be in a position where we can knock down those data silos and put data in one of your programs. With the launch of the Socrata Connected Government Cloud, today we're finally going to be in a place where you can empower every single person in your organization, whether they're an executive, an analyst, a program manager, to get the information that they need to drive better outcomes, better results, public that they set out to serve. So I'm excited. I know Saf's excited. How about we look at some software, yeah?
Yes. Woo! All right, Franklin. Everything starts with this idea of self-service access to authoritative, up-to-date data. How does that happen in the Socrata Connected Government Cloud?
The place that it starts is in a fully secure cloud. The first thing that you're going to notice here is that I'm on an instance that is completely private. Every time that I come here, I have to sign in. I basically am forced to sign into a private instance in every situation. Let's try that again.
Excellent. Highly secure.
And more importantly, it's protected via single sign-on as well. So you're able to use credentials that you already have as part of your organization, the policies that you already have as part of your organization, to make sure that only the right people get access to this data. Now, of course, as you highlighted, the key to all of this, and the very first step in all of this, is to start getting this data into the same place. That's heavily in our new data pipeline experience. A data pipeline experience that's designed to make it super easy to not just get data in the platform, but to get data in a clean, in an automated, and in an authoritative way. I want to give you an example of that right here with collisions data. Now, this is a data set that I pulled directly out of an Esri system, a system that I think a lot are familiar with. You can see the second we land on this page that we've optimized our data pipeline to work the way that governments work. We recognize that there are situations in which the data expert is very different than the person that can get the data out of these systems. And because of that, we've separated metadata, so the place where the person would go in and annotate it, help people understand that, from the actual addition of data. So in this case, I'm going to set it up, I'm going to categorize it, and if I wanted to, at this point, I could share it and collaborate with the data owner, who can then upload the data. I'm going to go ahead and do that, though. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the data. And the next thing that you're going to notice is that we support a variety of different ways to get access and to get information into the product. I can hand it a file. I can import from any URL that's on the web. I can even link out to systems that might be internal to me. Let's say I have a report server that I want to be able to drill into. I can pull those in as well. This is one of the places where we get incredibly excited about our partnership with Tyler, because you're going to see this grow, so that the data that you need is accessible, it's available to your fingertips. You'll see Tyler show up here. You'll even see non-Tyler products show up here as well. Things like Oracle, things like Microsoft, a whole host of connectors. And and I'd love to invite you tomorrow to Demo Alley. We're going to be showing a preview of this tech right outside. It's a really exciting, really powerful way, and it's something that we have to be able to do if we're going to meet this promise of bringing all the data into one place to get the insights that we need. So I want to go ahead and pull that data in, and I'm going to upload collision data. I'm going to pull this information in from my Esri source server, and the first thing you're going to notice is how quickly I'm getting feedback. I'm immediately scanning everything within this file and getting up-to-date insight into whether or not this data is clean. And unfortunately, like most source data, it's not. Fortunately, however, I can now drill in. I can see exactly what's going on in my data set. You can see here that errors are highlighted where somebody went and manually keyed in data. That data wasn't quite the right. Think back to how things were working even as recent as yesterday. You didn't have the ability to really transform this data. What you had instead was the ability to wrench it out, throw it in Excel. Maybe you get lucky, maybe you fix it, maybe you don't. You're probably sending it back to the person you got it, and it's taking weeks to get this information to the platform. For the very first time, a feature that we've enabled called data transforms. These transforms are designed so that you can fix these errors in line and make sure that the data that comes into your platform is high quality and clean. We've introduced a very robust set of scripts and functions, and most importantly, help within the platform and fix this data in line. You can also save those functions that you write and share them throughout your entire organization. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to write a quick function that is going to say, hey, try and look at this, but if somebody keyed it in incorrectly, go ahead and clean that up for me. I do that, and I immediately get insight that that information is going to import correctly. Now, if you think of speed, we're talking weeks. Here, we've scanned every file, every row, we've corrected it in line, and you now have the ability to correct that right in line. But you also have the ability to go through and inspect the data as well. So in this case, I still have some errors in the data set that I can quickly drill into and get insight into. When I drill in, I get fast feedback that tells me, oh, you know what? This actually isn't a number that I want to do analytics on. This is actually text, an identifier. And I want to tell the system that so that the visualizations and the insights that I get later will be tuned and will be in a place where that will just simply work right out of the box. I've also got some information here that looks like location out of an Esri server. It's not in a place where the system can really use it. It's not in a place where not just Socrata tools, but tools like CartoDB, Power BI, Tableau, a whole other host of tools I can use as well. So I'm going to use that same set of snippets. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to run that, and what I'll suddenly have is a robust shape that the entire system is going to understand as geospatial data. And this will become very important here in a couple of minutes when we start drilling into exactly what's causing these collisions.
Franklin, did that just happen that fast?
That happened that fast.
Okay. Can we do it again?
We can do it again, and not only can we do it again, but this is where we start getting really excited. We can do it built from the ground up to work on some of the biggest data sets that you have. We know, and you saw, that the data is only getting bigger. The volumes are getting bigger, the sizes are getting bigger, everything that you're doing is getting bigger. And so we've got to design this system from the ground up to be able to handle those data sets. So here we're looking at a data set with 6.6 million records. Chicago crimes, in fact.
Oh, it's a product connect demo with that Chicago crime data.
And what you could do with this is you could run the same set of transforms, or you can even use it to validate that the data is what you think it is. So in this case, I want to look at this arrest column, and I want to validate that the only values in it are true or false. Now, when I run this, fast. Did you see that? Almost imperceptibly fast. And
wow.
What it's doing during that time is scanning all 6.6 million records to make sure that they're up to date, they're correct, they're clean, and they are exactly what you think they are. Now, if you think about trying to do this yourself and trying to do this with the software that exists today, it's going to be insanely difficult to do it. Things beyond Excel, because Excel won't be able to handle this. You're going to need other tools, and you're going to need multiple machines to be able to get the performance here. You try and run that on your own machine, and it's going to be minutes, if not hours, before you even know whether or not it's correct. Because of the scale of the cloud and because of the software that we've developed and the software that we're announcing today, you can now get fast feedback and immediate insight into.
That is awesome, Franklin. This new data pipeline, let's just get a few things. Let's talk about a few things before we move on. These snippets that transform data. What happens when we update the data?
That's a great question. And so every time we've made great advances in making automation incredibly easy. Because if the data's in the platform and it's out of date, it's useless to everyone. And so we need to make it super easy to get the data up to date and keep it up to date as well. And so I'm really excited to highlight a new automation pipeline, both a pipeline and an SDK that you can write again that's designed to make it super trivial to get data in the platform. What you're looking at here is a little snippet of code that I can copy over, and I can paste into my favorite script editor. All I have to do from this point is literally change one line, and we're going to come back to this in a moment, literally change one line, and you're able to have new data flow into the system automatically with no changes at all. It's going to run the same set of transforms, it's going to run the same set of validations, and it's going to do the exact same thing time after time after time.
So Franklin, that 37% of knowledge work that's spent wrangling and preparing data every single time is now a one-time event. It runs every time the data updates.
That's exactly right.
That's awesome. Very cool. So that's how we get silos, connect those silos into a single access point for trusted data. Now, we talked about how we designed a world that balances peace of mind and control with self-serve. How did we do that?
Well, we did it first by doing a bunch of great research. We researched into how our customers shared data and researched into how things flowed. And the result of that research was a series of sharing controls that are designed to make sure that people see only the data that they should be able to access, but at the same time allows data to flow seamlessly between. So what you see here is a series of options that I have to either keep data private, or maybe keep it private just between you and I.
I like that.
The ability to share it with my organization, or the ability to nominate, and this is important, nominate that something should go public. Of course, subject to a review and subject to a small set of people saying that this is indeed something that we should be sharing publicly. Private, I'm going to go ahead and share it as well. I'm going to share it with the director of the Vision Zero program. I'm going to share it with her team as well.
Team?
And I did say team.
Team? Oh, tell us more.
And so as part of the Connected Government Cloud, we're introducing the notion of teams. So groups of people that you can use to manage and share assets with across the. You can manage and share, people can come and go, and that group of individuals will now have access to the information that they need to get their job done. And I'm going to go ahead and add those individuals. I'm going to go ahead and publish this data set and start bringing that into the platform.
And Franklin, while you do that, could the team be a cross-functional team? Say we're working on an opioid. Could we bring people from multiple agencies?
You absolutely could.
Team?
You could bring multiple people from multiple agencies to the team. You could organize those teams by different types, whether it's executives or program managers. You can have multiple people be part of different teams as well, because people are going to be working on a number of different projects when they're tackling some of these hardest problems.
That's awesome.
You can absolutely, and the other thing that we've done is we've put the administrator in control and given them both command, control, and confidence that the data that they have internally stays internal and is only shared with the people that they want. We've also given them visibility into it through a new feature that we called notifications. So I have the ability now to subscribe to basically every change that's on my end. I have proactive notification, both in the product and in my email, that the data has been, that my site has changed. Beyond that, I have an activity feed now of every single event and every single change that's happened within the platform. So here I can see literally every change that's happened in the platform. And you can see it's a pretty long list of it as well. Now, what's equally exciting is that not only can I drill in and see each of the assets and the changes, I can now look at individual assets as well. So if I want to understand what's happened with business licenses, for example, I can now track the full step one of many important steps that are required, one of which is being able to find that information that exists today. So you can use that information. You can find it by category, how I'm organized. Maybe I'm interested in just safety. You can find that by tags, things that customers have entered and users have entered as part of uploading their data set. You also have access to everything that's been shared to me and therefore is relevant to me. And most importantly, you have a very intuitive, familiar experience where as soon as I start typing, it feels like Google. The items are presented to me automatically. I know what I can search for, and it's an incredibly intuitive, fluid experience. So in this case, I'll just simply look for collisions, and there it is right at the top of my list. I'll be able to drill into it, and I'll now be able to start exploring that data and getting insights out of that data that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to get.
And as an employee, Franklin, when I go into that self-service discovery experience, what am I going to have access to?
You're only going to have access to the things that you should have access to. So you're only going to have access to the items that were shared with you directly, or you're only going to have access with the items that were published to your internal agency, or things that have been shared publicly as well.
And if I get added to a team later on?
Then you're simply going to have that updated automatically, and you're going to see everything that that team's able to look at as well.
That's fantastic. This is how we make a dent in that 7% of our time spent looking for data. Right?
That's exactly right.
We now can do that in self-service mode, zero wait, zero spreadsheets.
Yep. And most importantly as well, all of this is backed by an incredibly powerful API as well. So if you have a different information management service, you can use that API to start pulling in that information and to start discovering information from different experiences as well. Everything that we do is powered by these APIs, whether it's the data pipeline, whether it's discovery, or as you're going to see later, many of the experiences that are powered here as well.
That's fantastic. That's very cool. Let's show our audience what happens now that we have self-service access to authoritative, up-to-date data. How are we going to transform that data into program insights that can help folks in that program improve the outcomes?
I love that, and I love the word that you used in particular, the word insights. Like, what we're going to do with our visualization tools and the investments that we've made is we're going to take this data and we're going to start turning it into insights. And the way in which we're going to do that is to start visualizing it and to start looking through some of the exciting new additions to our visualization toolkit that we've added. Imagine I'm a Vision Zero program director. The outcome that I'm going for is very, very clear, right? Like, zero fatalities, zero serious injuries in my city. There's zero question about that. How I get there, though, is a bit more ambiguous. It's a bit tricky. Now, we know and we believe that the way by which you get there is going to start with data. And it's going to start by garnering insights from some very simple-to-use tools that anyone throughout your organization can use. For example, we've greatly improved our mapping experience to be able to pull in and render geospatial information in a way that just simply makes sense and exposes a ton of amazing insights. So again, let's look at fatalities, and let's take a look at anything that's greater than zero, because that, as the Vision Zero program director, is what I care about. Great, I've immediately, without the help of an analyst, without the help of anybody else, been able to drill in, and suddenly I see all the information I want to see. I can resize it by point value, by the number, I can color it. There's a whole host of things that I, without the assistance of anybody else, can do in a very self-service manner. I can also get insights by looking at different map types. So for example, in this example, I can go in, I can change this to a heat map, and I can see instantly where my problem spots are in the city. I can drill into them, and I can see, oh wow, when I'm south of the stadium here, I've got a cluster of events and a cluster of issues that we really need to solve for. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save that, and I'm going to go ahead and give this a title. I'm going to save it, and then, most importantly, I'm going to be able to use that same fluid sharing experience to share that with the team that can go and solve this problem. I can share it again with that same Vision Zero team, and if I wanted to, I could even share it with the civil engineers that we're going to send out to study those intersections. Maybe it's a signal timing, maybe there's a number of different improvements that they can make on the spot to ensure that this outcome never happens again.
Very cool, because this is how we make a dent in the 10 hours a week that are spent recreating that which already exists, because you were able to answer your question, you created an information asset, you're sharing it with the entire organization. If I go on the system and search for map of fatalities, I'm going to find the thing that you just created.
That's exactly right. And if I'm part of that team, I'm going to get a notification in my email that there's something new shared with me, and I'm going to know exactly what I need to go look at and the exact next step to take. But we also recognize that a lot of the insights come from beyond a single data set. They come from combining different data sets as well. And so what we're looking at here are investments that we've made to our geospatial stack. Investments that are designed to work with this broader growing volume of data and are designed to be visually arresting and help people get insights out of the data that's there. In this case, you're looking at every parcel in Dallas and every street in Dallas. I can go ahead and I can add all the parks to this. I can also go ahead and log and toggle on every request for service throughout the entire city. In the same way that I had a very fluid experience for searching for assets, I also have a fluid experience for searching for addresses. So I'll go ahead and do that. You'll see how quickly we zoom in. And you'll see us take advantage of some very, very exciting, very modern technologies like GPU acceleration to create an experience that is not just fluid, but almost magical.
Franklin, that map had a ton of data on it.
That map had gigabytes of data. This is a map, this is an experience that, again, because of the growing volume of data that you have, we have to design for from scale at the ground up. And we can do that, and we can actually create some really, really interesting and arresting experiences. We can tilt, pan the map, take advantage of modern technology, and literally fly through our city to see everything that's happening in a bird's eye view. It's genuinely a magical experience.
It is. Woo! Yes!
Now, of course, I'm going to want to share this asset. And again, I have the same options that are available to me. I can keep it private, internal, or in this case, we've decided that this information is something that should be shared with the public, and we've gone ahead and released it. But it goes beyond this as well. Geospatial is incredibly important. 80% of the data sets that we see on the platform are geospatial in nature. But we actually want to go even beyond that and add another dimension, and a very, very important dimension, which is that of time. So what you're looking at here is our XConnect application. I think a lot of y'all saw it last year, and we've pulled it into the Socrata Connected Government Cloud as part of one of the applications that you get simply out of the box. And I can use this application to see some very, very important insights right out of the gate. I can go ahead and I can filter by regions. I can just ask the tool, hey, where's the most dangerous region in the city? And immediately it zooms into the region and it tells me that the most dangerous city in terms of serious injuries is in the industrial district. But you take it one step further though, and you could say, wow, when is the most dangerous time? And you can immediately see on the right that we have a hotspot at 7 a.m.
And Franklin, we are getting rewarded here
That's
for
exactly
the work
right.
we did when we ingressed the data by fixing the dates and times.
That's exactly right. So now it pulls into the tool, it's automated, it's up to date, it's authoritative, it's clean, and now we can get insights with just a series of clicks. Two insights that I'm getting here are, I've got a very dangerous intersection down here, and I can investigate that a little bit more by pulling in other information through the platform as well. For example, I can pull in the locations of all my traffic cameras. So I pull in those traffic cameras, and I quickly see that where I have traffic cameras in this area, they seem to be working. Very few incidents and very few serious injuries at those. So I can get on the phone, I can share this information with the right people in the civil engineering and planning team, and we can go out and commission a study and put up another camera here as well, immediately impacting that and immediately making sure that people aren't impacted both at rush hour and at 7 a.m. But when I go up a bit further, I find another interesting insight. I find a hotspot here where I've already got a traffic camera. So something else is going on. So I dive into it, and what I understand a little bit more as I look at this is that this is right near the port. And when I look at the fact that it's 7 a.m., I start putting a couple pieces together. It turns out that at 7 a.m., all of the trucks that were idling at the port are now released and are now hitting the roads to take their cargo to its destination. So what can I do with this information now? Well, again, I can take it, and I can share it with the Port Authority. And we can work with the Port Authority to either adjust how traffic's flowing, adjust the times, and do a number of other insightful things that turns this data from just insight into action.
That's fantastic. And this is insights at your fingertips. And pretty much all we had to do is connect the data source, clean up the quality of the data once, make sure that it flows, and bring these tools that we have built and enjoyed over the years, build them around the needs of the government employee. Bring all of that insight, all of that information to their fingertips so they don't have to go recreate it every
They
time.
don't have to recreate it. It's just simply there, and they can simply get the insights that they need.
That's awesome.
So let's talk about one other aspect of this, though. We saw a number of tools that you can deploy inside your organization to get simple insights and to see actually very powerful insights using very, very easy to use, intuitive tools. But we also recognize that there's a class of information and a class of analysis that needs to be done outside the platform, whether it's with something like Excel or Power BI, whether it's with something like R or Python. And we, through our open data heritage and additional investments that we've made, we support that right out of the box. We support a number of different file formats for a number of different tools. We support a robust OData connection that works with Tableau, that works with Excel, that works with Power BI, that works with the myriad of BI tools that you need to be able to pull this data in. And of course, we have a robust API that you can use with data science tools like Python, or maybe even RStudio. And I want to show you just a really quick example of how simple that is and how impactful having that data in the platform can be for some of these tools. What you're looking at here is a quick analysis that we pulled together in the office to try and determine what causes serious injuries. And we asked the question of, does weather somehow impact when people are hurt? I think we have a vested stake because it rains all the time in Seattle. Yeah. And so we were wondering, are wet days more dangerous than dry? Now, what's important about this and what's exciting about this is to get that information into this tool, all I had to do was literally write one line in that tool. I had to say, give me this information, make sure you give me the username and password because, again, it's private, it's secure, it's your data, and then suddenly I'm able to pull it into R. And suddenly I have the entire statistical capabilities of R to create some really counterintuitive insights. So for example, we started looking through this and we started to say, visually, is there a difference? And well, no, I don't really see it. What if we looked at the distribution of all of these? Do we see a difference? No, I don't really see it. What if we ran a model on that, though? What if we ran a statistical model? What would it tell us? Well, it would tell us some actually very important information. In fact, it would tell us some very statistically significant information that says, in a somewhat counterintuitive way, that there is a significant correlation between the weather. I mean, it's the exact opposite of what you'd expect. Wet days are actually safer than dry days. You start digging into that a little bit more, and what do you learn? Well, you learn that one of the things that also correlates with this, because I can pull the data into R, and it's super simple to do so, is speed. What happens when it's wet? People slow down. Traffic gets congested. And so you never have the opportunity really to get in any of these serious injuries that happen when it's a bit sunnier out.
So two things to note in this part of the demo. One is the analyst was able to use, in this case, R. They could have used any tool of their choice. This is where that analyst was most productive. We didn't have to replicate the data, right?
That's right.
We can bring this idea of data as a service to all the analytics platforms that you are currently using in your organization. And perhaps what's not said is, who did this? An analyst? Why were they able to do it? Because now they were freed up from the treadmill type work that was their ad hoc reporting bottleneck that they were in, because now people are doing that in self-service world, and these analysts are getting to do the work that they always wanted to do. That's
exactly right. And if you read a lot about data science and analysts, it turns out that 90% of their time is spent trying to wrangle data. Well, because we've spent that time up front, got that data flowing into a platform in a clean, high-quality way, they don't have to do that. They have to write one line of code to pull that data into the tool and to suddenly be able to use that to create insights that they otherwise wouldn't be able to do.
That's fantastic. Kevin earlier this morning talked about a really important aspect of data enabling programs, and that is performance. And a lot of our customers in this audience are performance customers. And Kevin kind of gave us a preview or teased us about this new performance cloud. What's that all about?
It's a really, really exciting change to our performance program and to our performance product. We've invested heavily over the last year to make several improvements, both in our dashboarding and, more importantly, in how we measure and how we track performance within an organization. We're now basing it on that same authoritative real-time data that you saw earlier with the collisions data. And what that means is that I, as the executive, have full insight, up-to-date insight into every single thing that's happening within my organization. I can come in here as part of my weekly staff meeting. I can quickly look at the programs that I have set out. I can quickly look at the goals that I've set out at the beginning of the year and understand exactly how I'm doing with them.
And Franklin, this is inside that secure, authenticated world for employees.
That's exactly
This is not a public dashboard.
Not a public dashboard. This is something that is intended to be used internally. It's intended to be used on that weekly staff meeting where I get together with the people that are responsible for these outcomes, that are driving these outcomes. And we start asking not just, what are you doing, how are you doing it, but why? What's behind this? What's causing these issues? For example, I can look through the mobility dashboard and I can see Vision Zero is on track. That's looking great. But when I look at ridership, it's not looking so good. As part of that staff meeting, I can start drilling in. I can start asking the next set of questions, which is, okay, great. Why isn't this happening? I can look at transit ridership and I can drill into that and I can see historically how I've been doing. All of this is based on the transactional data. So if I have another question, I can drill in. And I also have context around this measure to understand where the data is coming from, how it's being measured, and the performance and targets that we've set out. Now you saw here that there were a couple metrics that we're just simply not doing that great on yet. And so previously, it would take weeks to ask that next question. You're in the staff meeting, you look at this number, it's clearly off track, you want to know why, right? Like, in the previous world, you simply couldn't do that. Now, however, because this information is based upon authoritative data, I can drill in, quickly see the trend, quickly see that it's up, and most importantly, I can drill into the transactional data underneath it. So in this case, we have a complaints database. When people are complaining about ridership, they all go into this data source. I can quickly drill into that data source. I quickly see that in May, I was getting a lot of complaints that that there simply wasn't enough capacity on Route 40. Now, I've taken that, I understand what's happening, I understand why, but what if we could fix it? What if we could have enough information at our fingertips that would enable us to not just troubleshoot, but solve that meeting in literally minutes? Well, with the Socrata Connected Government Cloud, we're able to pull all that information together and get the insights that we need to do that. So the first thought that comes to mind is, hey, maybe we can just spend more. We can buy more buses, we can do a couple capital projects. But because we're also pulling in finance as part of this cloud, you can quickly see that I just don't have the money for that. I'm over budget in almost every area in streets and transportation, and so I don't have an option. I've got to come up with something else. So maybe I can optimize and use some operational insights from the cloud to do exactly that. So what I have here is a supply and demand chart of rides versus seats. And you can see that when I drill into the 40, indeed, I've got a lot more riders than I have seats. You can also see that there's a number of buses, for example, and bus routes, for example, the 48 here, that's got a lot more capacity than it does riders. So what if I was able to rebalance? What would that look like? Well, I'd want to make sure that I didn't accidentally take peak capacity off a line. So I'd want to first look at the 40 and look at how that was doing every hour of the day. And indeed, you can see that basically throughout the entire work week, I don't have enough seats for people to get on the bus. So people are missing work, they're delayed, they're not able to get to where they need to go. You can also see, however, that when I jump into the 48, I've got plenty of capacity. So I don't need to spend money. What I need to do is get on the phone, talk to my transit agency, and start the process of moving some of these buses, some of these resources, some of these drivers from the 48 to the 40 in order to make sure that everybody gets to work on time and in order to make sure that the buses are truly optimized in the way by which we set out to do.
Franklin, this is a very different world than spending the vast majority of my time as a program analyst in the performance team, basically computing stuff,
right,
counting things, and entering them by hand so that we're looking at last month's data in our next performance meeting.
That's right. It's up to date, it's authoritative, so that you can have that weekly staff meeting and be informed on the exact information that's happened all the way up to the previous hour.
That's an absolute game changer for our performance customers here today.
It is. And you can do it across the platform as well. For example, you can do it with capital projects and infrastructure. If as part of this weekly staff meeting we drill into that, we're able to quickly and easily see I've got some problems with my planning process. I see a number of projects that are running late, and I also can drill in and see a number of projects that are over budget. And again, I can do this. The analyst can do this. It doesn't have to be done for them. So I start looking at this, and I start asking, we clearly have a planning problem here. Well, what happened? Well, I know that we made some changes to how we allocated resources last year. And because, again, the finance information is at my fingertips, I can drill in and start understanding that. I can drill in and look at that over time. And I can drill in and look at the exact people that are responsible for that. I look at the city planning associate and planning assistant. What do I find? I find that last year, when we moved planning assistants, we almost cut them in half. So suddenly I've got insight that the decision that I made last year might have not been the best one. Suddenly I've got an explanation for exactly why my projects are off track, and suddenly I've got a path that I can take to fix that.
And Franklin, we are looking at payroll data here. We have an open payroll application that has been part of our financial transparency efforts. It's what we do, it's what our customers do when they want to put payroll information out. And what we're seeing here is that payroll application available within this secure, authenticated world that the government employee lives in.
That's exactly right. Controlled, private, but still accessible so that anybody within that organization has the information that they need to drive the programs on behalf of their residents.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now, one of the other things that we're super excited about is, at our heart, we are an open data company, right? And we think that open data simply gets stronger as part of the daily use of data. After all, you're getting higher quality data in the platform. You're getting up-to-date data because it's being automated. And now you have a publishing path and a path to get data public that is so simple that it's not even funny. So I want to give you an example here of collisions data. I'm going to drill into this, and one of the things that I'll highlight is the internal data is almost certainly not appropriate for public consumption. There's information in it that shouldn't be disclosed, private PII, a whole other host of things that you don't want to publish. But we've created a super simple way around that. We've created something that we call views into the data. So I can create a view on top of that. And what I can start doing as part of this is I could start extracting and redacting the types of things in that underlying data set that I don't want people to see. So in this case, I can go through and I can extract location. Location is something that's PII. It's something that I don't believe that the public should have. I can go ahead and save that. And then once that's saved, I can go ahead and send it through that same robust workflow that you saw to make sure that this data and only this data is what's shared with the public. Now again, every time I publish to the public, it requires approval. It's got to go through that small set of reviewers before anything leaves the site. But I'm going to go ahead and submit that for approval. And when I do that, as an administrator, I'm going to get another notification in my inbox and in the application. I'm going to go and look at the approval queue. At the top of that queue, I'm going to see the data set that I just nominated. And I'm going to be able to either approve or reject that based upon my review of the data. So if it's got private or PII in it, I'll reject it. But in this case, it's good to go. The team's done the right thing. They've removed that data. I'm going to go ahead and approve it. And when I do, that data is immediately going to be accessible on my open data site. So here I'm on the Evergreen Data Library, or open data site. And if I search for that, using the same intuitive flow, it's immediately available. It's there, we know exactly where it came from, and it's accessible to everybody who can visit this site.
We've taken the same collision data set we've used throughout the demo to produce all these insights. We've created a view of that and published it with a couple of clicks in a sane workflow.
Yep.
That's what we mean by open data as a byproduct of internal use and driving the marginal cost of publishing open data down to zero.
Yep. So contrast that with the world that you live in today, where you have to knock on a bunch of doors, get data, go back to the owner, do a whole other host of workflows that take weeks, if not months, to get right. Now, because you're using this data internally for operational purposes, and because we put the right tools around it to let you pull out private data, to let you redact that while still maintaining the integrity of the underlying data, now publishing is no longer knocking on doors, it's literally a click away. And it's a click away in a highly secure, highly controlled, reviewable system that makes sure that private data truly stays private.
Absolutely transformational for all open data programs operating at scale today.
Yep. But there's one more thing as well that we think is absolutely transformational as well.
We're going to have our one more thing moment.
This is
Yeah?
our
All
one
right,
more
cool,
thing
let's
moment.
do it.
Yeah, and we realize that as the volume of data grows and as your programs grow, it's near impossible to stay on top of everything. Certainly it's impossible to pull up this and look at it on a every second basis or every minute basis. So what we are introducing is the ability to be alerted in real time as your data changes. And so I'm going to go ahead as part of this, I'm going to show you our new feature, Data Alerts. I have the ability now, and I have the ability, again, it's self-service access. Anyone can come in, and they can say, I need to know when fatalities are greater than 0. Simple, intuitive, I can do it as a program manager, I can do it myself, and now, every time that happens, I'm going to get an alert in the product, I'm going to get an email, and I'm even going to have the ability to kick off a workflow via a webhook, which is an API that can be a modern API that can be used to kick off both internal workflow or something like a cloud service, like IFTTT, Slack, a number of different tools that are out there that will then respond to this event when it happens.
So this is the technology that will make possible what Bruce talked about this morning, which is a lot of business processes span systems. So now we can execute a workflow across systems. Something happens in this one system, it triggers an action in another system.
That's exactly right. And remember that automation that I showed you earlier? Remember how easy it was? Well, I'm going to go ahead and run that right now. And that's going to go ahead and pull in more data. It's going to bring in that data to the platform. And as it does, those alerts that I set up are going to be triggered. Now, we showed you one example here of collisions, like a Vision Zero program. But there's a whole other host of data and alerts that you can set up. And it's really only limited by your imagination. It's only limited by the data that you'll pull in the platform. Let's say you're a controller's office and you care about overtime pay. You care about overtime pay versus base pay. And if overtime pay is more than base pay, then then I want to get an alert on it. I want to be notified that that happens. If major accidents are happening at an intersection, I want to be notified the second that that happens. If something's happening close to a school, I want to know the second that that happens. Anything that you can put in the Socrata platform, any data that's there now as part of the Socrata Connected Government Cloud has the ability to alert on it and proactively notify you and proactively let you go from not just insights, but true action on those insights. And when you do, you'll be notified both in the product and in email and can drill in and can understand in real time exactly what's happening. It's this type of capability that's going to let people put data at the heart of their program. It's going to be this type of capability that's going to let people truly drive outcomes that genuinely serve the public that they set out to serve. I'm super excited. I hope everybody here is as well. I want to appreciate and thank everybody for letting us come in and talk to you about this today.
Thank you very much, Franklin. Expect to be swarmed in a few minutes by people who are excited, who have all kinds of questions. Thank you very much. A quick shout out to our engineers, designers, product managers who have built this world that we envisioned a year ago. And that story that we have envisioned comes through the product so beautifully, so vividly, and so simply. And this is the world. This is the world that is now available to you, whether you're a program, a department, or a city. Data enabling this program, enabling the government worker means that we now have single access to authoritative, up-to-date data. We can automate it. We can clean it up. You've seen it happen. We can enable both self-service and peace of mind. We can go from data to information to insights to action. You've seen that entire world with just one simple example around collision data and transit data. And for CIOs, we can enable their best bet for taking money out of the current IT landscape and taking time out of these multi-year projects, which is to adopt this API-first strategy as the absolute bedrock of your entire data infrastructure, because the economies of reuse is what's going to drive costs down and what's going to allow you to do things in months that used to take years to do. And finally, near and dear to our heart, the reason we all got together in the first place is to make open data as simple as a few clicks of a button while increasing the flow and quality of that data. Truly transformational. That's what we said we would do in this session, is talk about a fundamental transformation of how knowledge work gets done in government. We didn't talk about incremental improvements. We didn't talk about small enhancements to the world that we know. But we also understand that technology alone cannot trigger that kind of transformation. We need to make things easy to adopt, easy to buy, easy to scale. And one of the fundamental ways we're doing that with Socrata Connected Government Cloud is to not make the mistake that other vendors make every single time. They get enamored with what they've built, and they say, wow, we now have the environment that's going to rule all environments, right? Everybody's going to want to do things in my world because it's so cool. We know that's not true, which is why we've built this from the ground up to take advantage of the systems and the investments you've already made in analytics, in BI, in whatever data infrastructure you already have. This is by design built to bring those open standards, the open architecture that has allowed the open data world to flourish. We're bringing that inside the four walls of government. So take advantage of that, because this is the fastest path to cutting millions of dollars of costs out of your current IT landscape. Kevin kind of got us all thinking this morning when he said, hey, we're making open data free, right? Like, whoa, Free. How does that happen? Well, in order for this connected government cloud to become adopted as widely as we think it's needed, we created a brand new pricing model. We created a brand new business model that's incredibly pro-customer. Because the way enterprise software, particularly when it comes to data and analytics and data warehouses, is sold today, is not pro-customer. It's incredibly punitive and prohibitive. So here's what we have designed. We said, all right, step one, if our goal is to close this enablement gap, we need to give these users every product that we have. That's why you saw us bring the Financial Insights Cloud inside the environment. That's why you saw us bring X-Connect inside the environment. Performance Cloud works in internal, secure, authenticated world and works in open world, the data as a service platform. Everything we make is now part of the Socrata Connected Government Cloud. So when you buy it or when you upgrade what you have to the Socrata Connected Government Cloud, you get access to all our products, no friction with, I want this, but I gotta wait an entire year of budgeting cycle to get this thing that I need today. That's off the table. The second thing, perhaps the most fundamental thing we've done, is align our success with yours. Population-based pricing, named user pricing, which is the prevalent way that enterprise software is sold, has little, if anything, to do with value delivered. How big is your organization? 1,500 employees. Fantastic. Let's buy 1,500 licenses of this, 1,500 licenses of that. Whether they get used or not, nobody cares. You want access, you got to buy a license. That's how enterprise software is sold and has been sold for the last 20 years that at least I've been in the industry. We designed something different that says, okay, we only want you to pay for value delivered. So when people use the system every day to do the things that you saw today, self-serve, access data, update a report, ask a dashboard some questions, make decisions, support an operational meeting, that's value. That's the only thing that you should be charged for. So the way we measure value is through usage and adoption, and that's through what we call monthly active users, people who are in the system every day taking full advantage of these capabilities, because every time they do, you save time, you save money, and you get better insights that drive program outcomes. And in doing that, you hear usage-based. Wow, that's cool, that's fair, that's transparent, but you know what it does? It creates uncertainty for me, and I don't operate in a world that likes uncertainty. Fantastic. We've eliminated this uncertainty. So we have a model that, for the term of your contract, gives you absolute certainty. There's no overage, there's no true-up. Every time you renew for next term, we look at the new baseline of usage and make informed decisions based on that. But during your term, we don't penalize you for success. Use as much of it as you want. And in doing that, we're taking a bite out of something that is taking a bite out of your budgets every single day today, shelfware. And you know this well. Do an audit of the licenses that you have bought over the years, right? Just do a simple audit, what you have bought versus what's being used. Because we all want to standardize on the one thing, but that just never happens, right? Every organization that I know of has almost virtually every BI solution known to humankind, somewhere, right? Right? So the idea is, let's not penalize users for casual use. Let's take it out of the equation. You shouldn't have to pay for it. Let's enable people to, look at a report, look at a dashboard. They want to do that a few times a month, a few times a week, fine, do it. You shouldn't have to pay for that. Because if we make them pay for that, then the very next thing that's going to happen is we're going to resort to sending spreadsheets by email. That's exactly what will happen to get around the licensing problem. We don't want to see that happen. So we're eliminating this idea of paying for casual use. Gone. And everything that you saw today starts at $240,000 a year. You can enable an entire program, a department, for $240,000 a year. So that's the new business model, that's the new pricing model of the Socrata Connected Government Cloud. And I want to close with one thought. I think I'm 2 minutes, I got 2 minutes, great. I want to close with one thought. Today is an exceptionally exciting day for us, right? We've been, as you can tell, we're really excited about this. We've worked hard on it. You've guided our progress for well over a year by pointing us at these systemic problems that we work to address. So this is a huge milestone. But as excited as we are about this milestone, it's not our ultimate goal to make this thing extraordinary. We want it to be absolutely ordinary for this to happen every day in your organization. We want it to be routine, right? We want it to be convenient to just do this. We want to get together with you in a few years at Socrata Connect, and for all of us to say, well, how did we do it any other way? The point is not to create something extraordinary that requires heroics, that we look at and go, wow. No, the point is to make it just part of your daily life and your colleagues' daily life. Our mission is to shorten that distance between you and your data. And despite the fact that this is an amazing milestone, it's just a milestone. Because for, as long as I've been with Socrata, which has been 8 years, we've been on this journey together. Every time we lower the bar, we find something else to lower, right? So thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for inviting us to be part of this journey with you. Thank you for letting us do what we love to do and support your mission in the process. This has been an exceptional year. I hope you enjoy the rest of Socrata Connect, and thank you for your being here. Thank you.